In today's video, I want to talk about Sony's Pulse Elite headset, which came out about 2 weeks ago. I think I picked them up on the third day. And this is an upgrade from the Pulse 3D. So I'm basically making this video for those who's thinking about upgrading. And as you all know, that Sony's selling point for this product is this planar magnetic driver. So for those who's considering picking the pad up or just upgrading, from my experience, I'm going to run through some pros and cons of owning a pair of the Elites compared to the Pulse 3D, and is it worth the upgrade? But before we get into that, let me give you a little bit of background. And for those of you who's returning and have seen some of my older videos, you'll know that I have a degree in animation. And then within that discipline, there was a course dedicated to sound design. I'm nowhere near qualified as a tech expert to go into details and stuff about the specs and all that, but I do have general knowledge of how different sets of headphones affect different sound qualities, especially when you're building a sound stage from the ground up. And there were a few pair that was recommended by our professor that would produce the best sounds for quality control when putting together a sound library for whatever the project was. So throughout the years of having experience with in-ear earphones, which is the ones that you put in your ear, and then you have the headset, the one that rests on top of your head, and they all share something in common, the dynamic driver, in which the Pulse 3D is a member of. So with that out the way, in this video, you can kind of see the direction that is going in, the dynamic versus the planar. So this is what this video is going to be really focused on. It's not going to get into all those other features that so many other channels cover. And plus, the headset been out for about, like I said earlier, 2 weeks. So any additional information or features you want to know specifically about, try checking out some of these other channels that cover the Pulse Elite in more detail. But this one is dynamic versus planar, and the sound quality that's produced from both headsets. And if you don't have a pair yet, there's quite a difference. And trust me, the difference is night and day. The sound difference is so far apart from each other that if you don't have any experience in listening to planar magnetic drivers, especially after having a certain set of headphones that you own, that you primarily use to listen to your video games in, that once you finally enter the planar magnetic stage, you may think that it's a downgrade. And that was kind of my first experience. Like, I'm so used to listening to certain games a certain way that when I upgraded to the Pulse Elite, the sound was so different. I had mixed feelings about it. And that's due to me only being exposed to dynamic drivers. So I'm naturally going to go with any headset that has bass enhancements. So when I first moved over to the Pulse Elite, the first immediate thing that I recognized was how lower the bass was coming from the planar magnetic driver. If you're new to this like me, it's definitely going to take some getting used to, because I could hear things going on around me and it's clear on the things that I hear, but I'm focusing on the bass. So now I'm in my EQ settings for days trying to at least intensify the bass somewhat, where it got to the point I had to go on Reddit to see how people were adjusting to the new headsets themselves and also checking for EQ settings. The more time I spent on my EQ settings in game, the subtle and detailed sounds that was like crystal clear going on in an environment. And I also noticed that there is bass there, just doesn't have the bass enhancement. It's like the bass is in a way where it doesn't overpower all the other sounds in the game. Because of my first impressions, I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep them because of how they sound at first glance. And so what I had to do is compare it to the Pulse 3D headset. That's where the conflict started to come in at. Because I wanted the bass, but switching back and forth trying to decide on what to do at this point, what made me come to a conclusion that I was going to keep the Pulse Elite was I was playing a session of Call of Duty, and I wanted to play the same map using both headphones. And I was playing it, I was using the elites without me, like subconsciously, I'm listening to all the sounds, and I was like, okay, those footsteps on the other side of the wall sound pretty precise. Like, so the same map, I'm using the Post 3D, and the footsteps sound heavier. They don't sound as natural as the Post Elites. So in order to get a better understanding on how defined these planar magnetic headphones are, I had to go into Ground War to get a better idea because of the different levels of floors and terrains that it has, just to see how precise the sounds are that's coming from these headphones. So my first deciding factor was my session in Ground War, and I was at the bottom of a hill, and at the top of the hill with a little slope that was a barrier there. I had no clue someone was there until I heard the enemy guy changing his magazine and cocking his gun back. I knew exactly where he was and how far away he was when he did that. But what really had me sold was this map right here, Levine Resort, specifically the building itself.
We're taking Bravo.
With these headphones, whether you're on top of the building, inside the building, or in the vicinity of the outskirts of the building, you can hear guns firing and explosions echo throughout the building through different levels and surfaces, and which I can say has improved my response time in certain situations. Whereas the Post 3D is so bass heavy that the bass enhancements kind of cover up a lot of the sounds that I should hear, which could get me out of different types of situations, but I don't because of the bass, where the Post Elites kind of clean all that up. But if you take a game, let's say like Gran Turismo 7, where sound cues aren't as important, but you enjoy listening to the engines as your car go around the track, or you enjoy listening to GT7 soundtrack, this is where I would prefer to have the dynamic headset. And I say that to say that it may be game specific to whatever your personal preferences are. I'm not for the switching back and forth just to play certain games. So this brings us back to Reddit and trying to find the perfect balance for the games that you play. And come to find out, after reading a couple Reddit posts and watching a couple YouTube videos, everyone don't hear the same thing the same way. So some may come close to your preference, others are just way out the ballpark, like none of it is going to satisfy you, so you would have to find your own balance. But I read a few Reddit posts and watched a couple YouTube videos and just trying to incorporate a little bit of all of it into what I want my games to sound like, whether it's Call of Duty, MK1, Gran Turismo 7, because they all have diversely different sound libraries. You have 3 customizable presets, as you can see with the EQ settings, but you can also tune all 3 of them to each individual games that you play, where I just use one setting that goes across all the games that I play, and it is balanced pretty well. However, although the Post Elite sound great, when I first purchased them, the sound that was coming from the Post Elite sounded kind of far away from my ears. And when I take my hands and push the ear cups closer to my ears, they sound so much better. I hope that's something that they can take note of and work on in the future pair of their headphones. As we began to wrap this video up, there's a few things that I think is worth mentioning, and one is the battery life. The battery life holds up pretty well on a Post Elite. I don't charge them nearly as much as I do the Post 3D. And I believe there's a feature inside the Post Elite that when not in use over a certain period of time, they will disconnect, they will turn themselves off, which I think is pretty cool. And for those who don't have a PS5 that's thinking about purchasing the Post Elites, because the headsets are designed specifically for PlayStation and its products, if using these headset on, let's say, the PC or the Xbox, you will not get the same quality that you will get if you were using them on the PlayStation 5, because it's a PS5 specific thing. So from here, I can see the direction that Sony's going in, and it's a huge step up from the post 3D, in which it took me a few days to adjust to because of the sound quality difference. And now that I'm able to hear everything crystal clear in the games, and the game seems more immersive and lively, I want to take this moment to give props to the sound engineers for making it all possible for these headphones to bring a different type of spatial awareness to your gameplay. And in my final opinion, if Sony could implement both products into one headset, or at least fine-tune the bass where it's a little bit more intense than what it is now. And I know it's possible because I can hear the difference in bass when I was looking for the old DOS House to compare it to the new DOS House. Although the sound in the newer games are more clean, you can still hear the bass in the older games where we know that tuning for planar magnetic drivers are possible. And with that, I'm out. Peace until next time.
I pull up in the Maserati, maybe the Bugatti, Ducati. They're telling me I'm too flashy. Pull up in the Maserati, maybe the Bugatti, Ducati. They're telling me I'm too flashy. Either way.